Okay.
Okay.
Hello. Welcome to the final session of our first day at BIME. Thank you all for coming as well. So my name is Shain, and I'll be the interviewer today. And first off, I'd like our keynote speaker to introduce himself.
My name is Bob Lefsetz. I write an email newsletter. I've been doing it a long time. I've read Malcolm Gladwell about the 10,000 hours. I've been doing it since 1986. We might get into the motivation of why I started it. I'm one of the few people who's rah-rah about the internet. Everyone's poo-pooing the internet, saying it ruined the record business. I used to send my newsletter via regular mail, wait for people to send snail mail responses. Although I had a free subscription to AOL in 1995. I brought my newsletter online in the year 2000. It's burgeoned since then. It's around the world. Everybody who's anybody in the music business gets it. I could toot my own horn more, but you listen to me.
We don't want that. Don't toot your own horn.
You listen to me and you'll tell me whether you think I'm full of shit or not, so that's okay.
We've got a whole hour, Bob,
okay.
For you to toot your own horn. So first off, I read your blog today, or the Lefsetz letter, about Taylor Swift. And for better or worse, regardless of what you think or anyone else thinks, her team is very successful at engaging fans and building an audience. And the main focus at BIME, at least to us building the panels, is music and new forms of revenue diversification as ways to make money non-traditionally, including sync, gaming, Latin and South America opportunities. So my question to you is, when we're talking about revenue diversification in music, do you believe that the new endgame is focused more on stardom or sustainability? I ask that simply because you write a lot about stars and their impact on the business, but if revenue is diversifying, is that meaning that more of it is still ending up in the hands of the few? Or because we're moving into a more globalized world, is it becoming more about the business of sustainability?
You've asked many questions there, and I'm trying to think of where to start. Let's start with the end, and then maybe we can go back to the beginning. You might be able to remind me of some of the questions, because my mind kept changing as you're asking.
I wrote it
down. The first thing you were asking about is, are we in an era of stars? Today, you are a star or you're nobody. I remember buying records in the 70s when people would shop at their local record shop because it was convenient, even though you might be able to buy the same record $1 or $2 cheaper somewhere else. But the truth is, every store is right next to each other online. Every act that has ever made music is available online. You're competing against the history of recorded music. Therefore, the listener only wants to listen to the best. Good is no longer good enough. Now, everyone has to start somewhere. And yes, you have to eventually build an audience. But if you are in the middle, if you can survive, that's fine. But we really only want the superstars. Now, superstardom can be defined in many ways. Going back to your earlier question, it's music! Everyone seems to forget it's music. You wouldn't be in this fucking room if you could make the music, okay? We can all make a movie. You sit a 5-year-old down and you watch it, and you say, watch the Rugrats, some animated thing, and that person could say, oh, the character wasn't believable. I didn't like the story. Whereas music, if you go back to the old American bandstand paradigm, was a big TV show for decades in America where they spun records, had a good beat and you could dance to it. That's about as much as we can say. We know what we like. Forget that we're in this era of superstar producers and writers, okay? Being able to write and perform music is an ethereal skill that you have to develop. Everyone's a fan of music. Let's start with music business in general. You could be a ditch digger or you could be a garbage man. Those are reasonable professions.
I'm sure many are in the music industry.
Hopefully you can feed your family. People are not lining up to be garbage men. New York City, actually, they are, but
yeah,
generally speaking, they're not lining up to be garbage men. In the music business, it's like the circus. You know that old joke where, the guy's shoveling shit behind the elephant, and, why don't you quit? He goes, and give up showbiz? People are willing to work for free. They're lining up to work for free in the music business, okay? Everyone's a music fan. There's incredible competition. It's like writing an app for the iPhone or Android. Millions of people literally are doing it. So in this particular case, you have to be fantastic. If your music is fantastic, then the opportunities change. I mean, you have to look at, okay, last year, meaning 2013, three biggest hits of the year were Get Lucky by Daft Punk, and Blurred Lines by Robin Thicke, and Royals by Lorde. Now, Daft Punk didn't do any commercialism. As a matter of fact, now granted it was an established act. They did these teaser ads at Coachella and on a late night TV program in America called Saturday Night Live. They didn't tie in with any corporations. A lot of people say, oh, you have to do that to get ahead. And they have enough money from selling that record and licensing that record, they're not going on the road. Then you have Robin Thicke. Now, he didn't whore that record out, so it's not a perfect example, but one other thing about it is that it was ubiquitous, and now the guy is essentially over. His last album was a stiff. And you have Lorde, who does Royals, okay? Royals was, hey, I'm not one of the rich and famous people. I don't get all the endorsements. And she's done essentially no endorsement. She's got one makeup endorsement. And it was the biggest track of the year. If we go over the last 5 years, what is the biggest act worldwide, every territory? Adele. Adele does none of this, okay? I know I'm pissing on your parade because you have an app, you have a game, you have something, and if only the artist would tie in with you, you would be able to make money. There's plenty of people who want to tie in with you, certainly all the rappers, etc. But I have to say, as an advocate of the art, credible, believable art is the #1 criterion. Everyone here may or may not be aware of a band from the 60s and 70s in America called Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. At this point in time, Crosby, Stills, and Nash, they can do sheds and theaters. They can do in the neighborhood of 3,000 to 5,000 seats. Neil Young, who never took any money from anybody, makes a multiple of that. So, yes, are there commercial opportunities? Absolutely. 2, we live in a disinformation society in that most people in the music business get paid when something happens. A manager, an agent, who gets 10 or 15%, depending on the territory and the deal. They say do this because they want to get paid. But isn't it interesting that the life of an act is very brief today? Because we're undermining the credibility. So it's a dance between those two things.
So let's go in, I think going back to my question as well, now you've given me lots of questions based on what I gave you, but your definition of the best, first off, I believe that maybe your definition of the best is based on the American major label fueled music industry, maybe what sells. But for example, the top selling record label in Brazil, Som Livre, licenses music to telenovelas. So from my perspective, doesn't this support the sustainability, diversification argument that I'm saying?
And I could talk out of both sides of my rear end, both sides of my face, whatever, in that, yes, there's a whole world going down there. And we're at one of these conferences where all this money, I just want to say that the most credible artist and the best-selling artist in the world did none of this, Adele. Now, are there 5 other Adeles so far? No. But that seems to be the #1 recipe. Make the best record and you don't have to do all that. Now, if you're asking me a different question, I just wrote something about this the other day. There's the reality. Do you want to play in the reality? The reality is we live in, certainly in America, in a pop world. And the pop world is controlled primarily by the couple of people. Most famous are these record producers, Dr. Luke and Max Martin. Max Martin happens to be Swedish, but he's living in Los Angeles now. And they write a great proportion of the hits. They did Katy Perry's Roar, okay? So if you're sitting here and you're telling me, I'm a good-looking person who's a good singer, am I going to tell you to walk into the wilderness and do it like Adele? That's much harder, and very few people have that level of talent. So if you're going down the other path, first you want to make a hit. This is going to be down and dirty. What really resonates is something unique in art like Royals, but I can't name 3 other Royals in the last year. So what most people are doing is they're saying, let me go with the established hit maker. Now I'm talking to Dr. Luke, and this is a year ago. This is when the Katy Perry track came out and the Lady Gaga album. If you follow the Lady Gaga album, it's essentially a stiff, i.e. it didn't sell. And he says, she needed to work with me. It wasn't quite good enough. And he was right. If you're playing that game, you have to do it. So right now, as we sit here, Taylor Swift's album is released around the world. Okay? Taylor Swift is the biggest person in the music business, certainly in America. Around the world, depends on the territory, but she's certainly big. She is doing everything. She's appearing on The Voice. She's having people come to her apartment. She's tied in with corporations to get the message out, because it's harder to get the message out than ever before. Used to be there was a little bit of information. I grew up in what we call the 3 network TV outlets in America, NBC, CBS, and ABC. Now most cable systems have hundreds of channels. So to cut through that clutter is difficult. So yes, are many people saying, let me tie in with corporations, let me tie in with TV shows, they'll expose? Absolutely. But I have to give the caveat that the biggest act didn't do it that way.
But going back again, it's hard to say. It's like you don't have to do anything to be famous, right? So to speak, you don't have to be.
Well, you have to do something.
Yeah, you have to make a great record. But I still believe that there's a dominance within our conversation as well, and there's a dominance still within the, we'll call it white Anglo-Saxon, American, British, Canadian music industry.
No, the biggest record of this past year worldwide, literally the biggest record, is by Avicii called "Wake Me Up." Okay,
which is where I'm headed. So in this particular case,
there's been electronic music for decades. Ironically, it started in America, in Detroit, in the warehouse parties, the wax records, and then it came to Europe. It's been happening in Europe for decades. Okay, just last weekend was the Amsterdam Dance Event. It was really big, but in America, in Europe, some of these acts have broken through much earlier than in America, like David Guetta, okay, and then, oh God, I'm suddenly forgetting this other guy's name. It'll come to me in a second. So, but most of them broke through when they crossed to pop, okay? So there's a merging of the cultures. It used to be the worldwide business was dominated by America. Not anymore. I agree with you.
But is that a merging of a culture or an Americanization of a culture? When they cross over into American pop, this is when they become famous.
Generally speaking, so these are. You make a very good point. These are greedy people, and they say I can play and I can make. They're DJs that most people have never heard of, and every weekend they take private jets around the world, and they get paid far in excess of $100,000, 100,000 euros for that matter.
And they're set on a USB key on their necklace as well. Like Skrillex, who has his whole set on a USB key on his necklace.
Well, wait, we're switching subjects here.
No.
I mean, it's like I was in Ibiza last year. There's this guy, Sven Vath. He kills it there. He plays, he's a German guy, probably late 40s, maybe very early 50s. I did not know who he is. He makes millions of euros a year. So there is a business in that. As far as Skrillex goes, the fact that it's on a USB thing is good in that the business, many artists today are bitching. They're saying, I can't make any money, people are not buying CDs for the equivalent of $20 or 20 euros. When the truth is, they made the album on their laptop using software you can have software that comes for free on a Mac, GarageBand, you can make your record. You can steal the software, you can spam everybody online, and then they're complaining people aren't buying it. In the old days, that would have cost somewhere between $500 and $100,000. Okay, so it works both ways. You can get your message out, and you have to start. The fact that the barrier to entry is low and there's incredible clutter, that's a separate issue.
That's true, but for me, going back, I believe in the whole sort of one of the points of BIME is we're trying to deliver a new message of the music industry, so to speak, that focuses on the true globalization of the music industry. The fact that we have artists, Latin artists that could sell out Madison Square Garden that I've never heard of, or we have Bollywood artists that can play to millions and millions of people, but what you're saying is, okay, we have these EDM DJs that are theoretically sort of culturally neutral because they're DJs, right, that have to abide by or become part of an American pop scene. So
whoa. Let's not confuse it here.
Success,
the point is, how successful do you want to be? You are absolutely correct. There are Juanes, what's the guy's name? Something Juanes. Miguel, whatever. These are acts that play arenas in America. They cannot play every city in America to 20,000 seats. Even arenas usually 15 to 20,000 seats. The question becomes whether they're happy with that. I'm certainly not denigrating that. A guy like David Guetta, he's making millions already. He wants to become an international superstar. That's a choice that he's making. No one's putting a gun to his head. No one's saying to Juanes, oh, really, you're nobody. okay? Or you have Enrique Iglesias, who crossed over from Latin culture, also into what you're calling WASP culture. That's a choice that they made. It's not like they can't make any money. Now, I was in Bogota last year, and I was talking to people there. It is difficult for some of those people because of the way the economics are and the way the licensing deals are in foreign countries to become as rich as people who work in different territories, but they certainly have an audience.
So my question, in the music industry that I inhabit, governments are very much involved in not only funding but sponsoring. We have countries presenting bands at South by Southwest and Meedem and Reeperbahn and so on and so forth, and here. But essentially we're saying is the country of origin, where someone is from, is meaningless in some way towards
Well, it's not meaningless if your government's giving you some money to travel around the world, but it's ultimately meaningless in terms of the barrier. We saw this in America, the advent of Napster, where acts that are based in one territory could tour markets far away based on the fact that people who were fans went to college in different areas. So I certainly agree with you. The fact is, if your music can infect people in different territories, the internet will help that happen.
But my question is being situated from a place, as having a strong, I'm from X place or whatever, I am Colombian, I am Argentinian, I'm whatever, is that a barrier in some ways?
It's not a barrier.
To stardom, in your opinion.
Okay, no, it's not a barrier. Listen, it's always easier to move to Los Angeles or London. No one is stopping you. You move it. You can literally go and meet all the people who can say yes.
And no.
Okay, they almost always say
Mostly,
no.
yeah.
Okay, you can meet them, but it's very hard to get their attention. Okay, so if you want to sit in a tertiary market and start, that's great, but you can't complain. You can't complain that the major label A&R guy didn't come to your show. You can't complain when you send your link to someone who's famous that they didn't play it. It's a business, it's a game, it's who you know. Now, in this particular case, you also cannot make klezmer music. You can't make klezmer music and say, I can tour the world because of the internet, I make klezmer music. How come I'm not a billionaire? How come I'm not flying a private jet? Most people don't want to hear klezmer music. Okay? So you have to make music that most people want to hear. I mean, it's like saying, when you're talking about it, you're talking about as a ceiling. Is there a ceiling? There is no ceiling. We live in a completely fluid society. Look at the DJ, if I remember his name, played Coachella 2.5 years ago. Madion, okay?
Madion, yeah.
This is a guy who's, the promoters had to ask his parents whether they could come. It wasn't like he was knocking on the door. They said, we want you to come play. And then he played Electric Daisy Carnival this year, okay? Yes, there are many acts coming from nowhere who are succeeding, but they're working in genres where there is that avenue to ascend.
Okay, so my question is, going back to the first question, so we're talking about, is this a business in general based on stardom or sustainability, right? Going back to that, I want to talk about measurement. And we have artists, we have businesses, if we look at Latin and South America, again, which is a big focus of the conference, if we look at that, the culture of music is very different, I believe, to the culture of music in LA or New York or London, where, I'm not walking down the street in London and there's music everywhere. But music, I believe, is a real part of the human fabric in those places. And I think you've written about that.
That may be true, but I think you hear music in these other places too, but continue.
And I know you've written about that. So my question is, are we, from an industry perspective, are we measuring the wrong thing, or are we missing something? Because if we're just counting downloads and CD sales in Colombia or Brazil or any market like that, are we missing potential stars? Are we missing, or are we essentially?
You know.
Are we asserting a false dominance of the American industry, so to speak, by not measuring things?
You're cracking me up with this American dominance thing, okay? In terms of the three biggest acts of the four that I mentioned, they're not American.
Well, they're run through American offices.
The fact that America blew them up is no different from if you make a deal with Apple, whose all its gear is manufactured in China, okay? The fact that they have a network around the world. I mean, Universal, the world's largest record company, okay? They have offices around the world. That gives them power. So a lot of people, they'll make that deal. Say, or it's like if you're if let's say you, like my girlfriend's family, her father was a famous musician, and they have publishing. He wrote the songs. Well, if you want to go with a publisher who can collect all that money around the world. So this big bad enemy I don't understand. Going back to your earlier point, okay, about how do you need the victory lap? There are many acts who make a lot of money, and they want to be famous, or they want everybody to know who they are. Those are two different things. As far as the measurement goes, the number one measurement today is how many fans do you have, okay? In terms of record sales in most markets, they're declining. In terms of streams, the media has not caught up to report the streams. But there's a coalescence, all these factors coalesce to state what your status is. And just like anything else in society, okay, it's like mobile phones. We all have one. They all look a little different. Is Apple dominating? We fight because, as a friend of mine, George Trikulius, who used to be a record producer, he did the original Black Crowes record with all the hits. He goes, I used to fight about records. Now we fight about our mobile phones. If you make records people want to fight about, that's great. But no one is sitting here. There's not a chart. We see it a little bit on, Apple, Android, Samsung, Xiaomi. There's a number of people who care about that, but it is art. The point is, can you sell tickets? That's usually the final arbiter. Can you go on the road and sell tickets consistently? And people in this business who rule this business, that's the one metric they look at.
Yeah, I didn't mean to focus too much on American dominance, so to speak, but again, this is, I want to talk about the new opportunities that are emerging in Latin and South America as well, and your
there's a couple of
things,
let's just cross it over. If you are singing in Spanish, odds are you will not be a worldwide superstar. History is littered with a few tracks that made it despite being spoken in foreign languages. I'm just singing it straight. I would love to tell you, that's the problem with the music business. Everybody's blowing smoke up people's asses. Oh, you're great. Stay with it. I wish you were in my position. If you say something like that, you're fucked, because 10% of the public is nuts. The problem is you don't know which 10% it is. And I've had this bad experience a number of times. You say something, well, that's pretty good. Stay at it. You don't know who you say that to. Then they email you and they say, oh, I'm in a radio contest. You have to tell all your listeners. I'll tell you a true story. You have to tell all your listeners to vote for me on the radio conference. I'm not going to do that. Then because we live in this fucked up internet era, they'll email you 5 times. Then because you're learning your lessons, you say, you got to stop that, or I'm going to tell everybody how shitty you are. Then the guy puts on MySpace at the time. This is a MySpace story because I learned my lesson. Hey, send email to this asshole. And all of a sudden your inbox blows up. You literally can't even work, okay? Then you call a connection at MySpace, say, you got to take this page down, which of course he's breaking the rules because he's giving personal information about me. He can't. Fine, they take it down. But he doesn't care. It's an individual against the system. Even though it's against all the rules, he starts on another page, okay? So you wonder why, every major record company will not take unsolicited material. And you say, that's so unfair. I'm great. No one will listen to you. They've all been sued a zillion times. There's a classic expression called, where there's a hit, there's a writ. A writ is a lawsuit, okay? Every major track, somebody sues and says, I wrote that track. So they won't take unsolicited material because then you're going to sue them. And then you say to me, well, I'm not that person. And then we go back to this. Well, 10% of the people are that person. Okay? So in your particular case, this is music. There's no barrier to entry. Doesn't matter where you went to school. No one's toting up how many hours you practiced. The first thing you have to do is make it. Then you have to distribute it. It's never been more simple. The medium of choice, certainly in America, depends on the territory, is YouTube. You can put it on YouTube for free. You can put it on SoundCloud for free. Once you do that, is anybody listening who's not related to you? Because if no one's listening who's not related to you, it's a stiff. I don't want to hear you tell me, no, it's great, and you got to give it 5 times. No one has time to listen to something 5 times because no one has any time. We have incoming. You talk to people who are 20 years old, they say they can't field all the incoming, okay? So we're looking for a reaction. If it does not generate something, it doesn't mean it has to go to 0 to 100 instantaneously. Doesn't mean you have to put it on YouTube and you have to become Gangnam Style, having with 1 billion hits. But if you put it on YouTube and you have 1,200 hits, it's a stiff. Done. and you can't even get to 1,200. Someone like me, they say click through, I say 1,200, 56. You're nowhere. Why are you looking at me? I can blow things up to the stratosphere compared to you, and you got to give me something to work with. So this guy sent me this track out of Germany called Milky something. I forget. And I looked at it, it had 60 million hits, and I'd never heard of it.
Milky Chance?
Milky Chance, thank you. 60 million, and I'd never heard of it. Then I had to write about it. I listened to it, it was good. Okay, that's the world we're living in. So you can't complain. Now, how do you get to 60 million hits? Can you use all the tools? Can you use video games? Can you use sync? Absolutely. But the road is not straight. I was writing about this earlier today. Last year at Christmas, Beyonce put out an album with no advance promotion. Taylor Swift has been talking about her album for 6 months and been working it hard for a month before the album came out. Two superstars, two completely different paths. So I can't sit here and say, this is the path you got to take. And as a matter of fact, we're all interested in doing things that are out of the ordinary. I'll give you an example, Snapchat. How many people here know what Snapchat is? Okay, Snapchat is basically you send something and it evaporates. Now, as a matter of course, the real story is you can ultimately save it. There are other programs, forget it. There are people developing shows on Snapchat, okay? Superstars are on Snapchat. It only lasts for 1 day. If you don't go there, you can't go back. Whoever thought of that, that was cool. So you want to do something, it's more important thing is first have great music, and then if you want to employ all the marketing things, do something we haven't seen before. A video with a gimmick. There's a band in America called OK Go. They made these videos. First they made one with treadmills, and that might have been the second one. Then like a Rube Goldberg. That's their only trademark. If you do that, it's been seen before. It's like Radiohead in rainbows, okay? Name your own price. Everybody who did it after that failed. A month ago, U2 puts their album Sent by Apple. It will never be done again. Even if there wasn't backlash. If you're coming up with marketing ideas, it has to push the envelope. We have to want to talk about it. Even though you can have press and all these other things, success is based on you and me talking about it. We are the ultimate arbiters. We have the power.
Is the standard sort of campaign structure, like I used to do PR and send to the PR person 3 months before and so on and so forth, that's dead?
Well, that's very interesting. Up until 3 years ago, it was dead. And then starting about 2.5, 3 years ago, internet clutter happened. Okay, in that there was so much information, nothing can be viral from the bottom anymore. Then it became about the big campaign like you're talking about it. Yep. Now we're in disarray again because the album is dying, and I get email from wannabe acts all the time. They say the newspapers won't review it unless it's an album.
Well, there's some countries still, like Germany, for example, that are still very album-based. 70% physical album sales.
In terms of what people are ultimately listening to, which is the only thing that counts, albums are history. The album was the album evaporated when we had the CD because you could go from track to track. Okay, now the fact that you're selling albums and there's no market alive, other than Adele, no one's even selling tonnage. Okay, we're using that as a metric, but that is not. If you talk to anybody who measures what people listen to, they don't listen to the album, they listen to the track. So Germany says we're selling albums. I guarantee you that's not how people are listening.
That's a fair point. So my question is, okay, so we're in this internet disarray. Is that bringing up a more simplified marketing approach? I think YouTube's approach was quite simple, theoretically. I think someone from Apple said, we'll put your record out. I'm like, all right, sure.
That's not how it happened.
I know that's not, but,
in terms of
or is it creating more complex ways of marketing records?
The most interesting thing about U2, if you followed it closely, was in terms of the backlash, how many people had never heard of U2? Literally, it was unbelievable. So this is the largest touring band in the world. They went on the road, the tour ended a couple of years ago, but 2.5 years, they made $750 million. It was in every trade paper known to man. And we're talking, and Bono is constantly saving the world. He's flying around to the World Economic Forum, he's meeting with the president. An incredible percentage of people had no idea who he was. The more important thing, other than Bono, is that's the world we live in. So it used to be, after the Police, there's a band Police 30 years ago, the guy who was the drummer and the manager's father was in the CIA, and they lived in many territories. And they decided they would tour all these territories. That became the world domination concept. I'm going to dominate the world. It is harder than ever to dominate the world. It's easier than ever to reach everybody, because if you do something online, everybody could be aware of it. But unless you set yourself on fire or shoot somebody, it's hard to get everybody to pay attention, and it certainly doesn't last. So yes, it is a conundrum. So if you have a track, you have to think of all these, you're confronted with the juggernaut of choices. I make a track, okay? I can play the opening stage at Coachella. I can play at noon. Literally 100 people will hear me. I can tell everybody I play Coachella, but it won't drive my show. However, now we get the Grammy effect. In my press release, I can always say, I played Coachella. And someone can look it up and say, hey, that's worth something. You don't have any fans. But how can you leverage that to the next thing? Then you say, what kind of music do I make? Okay, I have 5 people in the band, I have no live business, and I own a house. You have to make pop music. That's the only music where you can go from zero to hero overnight.
So if you own a house, you have to make pop music?
Excuse me? No, the point is, if you don't, yeah, I would say yes. Sure. If you want to be a musician, don't own a house, don't get married, don't have children. Because being a musician, there's a famous song, It's a Long Way to the Top, if you want to rock and roll, by AC/DC. Getting beat up, broken boned. Well, they don't have any health insurance. It's a life. You live in some of these European countries where they have welfare states, which is fantastic. But generally speaking, a musician, his car was repossessed. He doesn't have a house and he doesn't have health insurance. And the stories are rife for people who were broke one day and then are double-digit millionaires the next. That's the nature of the game. That's why a lot of people get into it, because it's one of the few opportunities to make that kind of money overnight.
So you're faced with, that's the thing, when you're marketing bands now, we're faced with God knows how many choices. There's social networks that I've never heard of. There's a new one a couple weeks ago, Ello, I think, that's now the anti-Facebook.
Ello, the non-commercial social network.
Yeah, whatever, another one, and so on and so forth. I'm thinking, is this, looking at, we have a panel on Friday that's about thinking about the future, but looking about this, is this going to bring about a further simplification of how you market
bands? When the game ends, people aren't going to like it. When the game ends, everything you're saying is going to come true. It's going to be dominated by a very small handful of players. The major labels have a lot of power. It's primarily their catalog, which they can leverage so they can have ownership in Spotify and these other streaming entities. They're going to have the best talent. Not that other people couldn't necessarily come in, but there'll be very few companies and very few acts, and they'll be making a fortune. And you'll be sitting there saying, I'm fucked. This already happened in the movie business. If you follow the movie business has changed in a few ways, and in every country it's a little bit different, because outside of America, a lot of the countries, movies are supported by the government. But the studios used to make a lot of movies, they used to sell DVDs, and they used to have what we call the art divisions. So there was Sundance and all these film festivals. They have a lot of them in Europe. And that'd be a way to build up stuff, build up noise, so that your movie will come out and make money. Most of those movies are never released, never hit general release anymore. Because the movie studios say it costs too much money to make some noise, and if we make any money at all, it'll be minimal. And you'll sit there and go, I got 5 stars in Deauville, I played Cannes, I'm an audience winner at Cannes. I'm just giving you reality. It's unbelievably hard, and it's going to get worse. So when it comes to marketing, we have these divergent things. Used to be the person who sat at home was in love with the act, and the people who hated the act had no voice. Now the hater, I've watched some award shows where people stand up, famous people, and granted this is American, Tina Fey, big star in American, stood up and she called out her haters at the Emmy Awards, okay? Because these are nobodies who every day have a voice to the somebody, okay? We live in a completely different world. And if I was sitting here and say, oh, it's concrete and this is a path, I would be a liar, okay? The other nature of music is it's always something from left field that triumphs. whether it be rock and roll or hip hop or electronic music. When you look at electronic music, none of the major labels were involved, none of the major touring companies. Happened by itself.
So at this stage, we only have a few minutes left.
Okay.
I'd like to open it up to questions, if anyone has any. I've got loads, but
We'll ask
please.
one while everybody's thinking of their questions.
I can. Well, I want to harp on. I think that you're saying it's going to end up in some sort of, in a doomsday-esque scenario where there's going to be a few companies and owning everything. I think that. Well, first off, I think that that's pretty much the way it is now. But my second thing is, with the world changing as it is, with these developing countries, these BRIC countries, whatever they're called, gaining more money, don't you think that viewpoint is skewed by our music industry, and that there could be multiple music industries happening that function perfectly well, but maybe, or do you think in those music industries there's just going to be 3 people that own everything anyways?
No, the ownership is a different issue.
Maybe,
I don't think dwelling on that, but in terms of superstars, Metallica tours India, okay? All these bands are available around the world. So the nature of the business is the acts come and go, the business people remain the same. It's been that way for 50 years now. So a successful act can make more money than anybody, but there's one Elton John, Guns N' Roses burned it out, okay, there's one Aerosmith. There's a handful of bands like that. So if you are a hobbyist or you can play weekends, I'm not here to criticize. But don't sit there and then tell me, hey, I'm locked out of the big market, okay? I'm just trying to tell you is that there are all these companies, Reverb, Nation, where they sell hope, where it's like, okay, we'll get you gigs. They don't. This is the way it works. If you're good, your phone will not stop ringing. In this particular case, it'll be email, it'll be text, it'll be, people want to get a hold of you, they tweet you, okay? It's like, if you're good, people will find you. We have people looking all day long. Used to be, your point about where am I? Used to be, if you were in Timbuktu, no one could notice you. Now we have people in Timbuktu, okay? Well, this woman who's an American found Lord in New Zealand and told Jason Flom, who she'd been on a date with, okay, that's how it happens today. What is Jason Flom? Never been to New Zealand before. That's how you find them. Okay, so any questions?
We've got a few minutes left, literally.
Okay.
3 minutes. Yeah, you can introduce yourself as well. Microphone is coming.
Hello. Hi, Shain. Hi, Bob. My name is Ángel Navas, and I'm a co-founder of industriamusical.es. It's like a B2B magazine of the industry website. And Bob, I wanted to ask you, from your point of view, what's the biggest error that the music industry is committing right now? The biggest error.
Biggest error?
What is the biggest error the music industry is committing right now?
Music error, you about independent acts or the music business in general?
Well, the music business in general.
I think the big problem in the music business in general is something that Shain touched on. We don't have metrics that speak to reality. So it's hard to say who the star is if you're focusing on physical product sales, okay? But no one has come up with a formula. A lot of people who make the charts, they've tried to integrate YouTube views and other things, as if they have too many people they're ultimately responding to. The other problem we have, and this is also America-centric, but it's around the world, is we have income inequality. Used to be a successful musician was one of the richest people in the world. Today, a successful musician pales in comparison to a techie. As a result, the best and the brightest don't go into music. Doesn't mean there aren't the best and the brightest, but generally speaking, people who are hungry to get from where they are today, I mean, if you look at the British invasion of the 60s, these were all blue-collar people who said, I just don't want to work in the factory. What can I do? Today, blue-collar people don't want to work in a factory. They don't say, I want to be a musician. They say, hey, I want to write an app. I want to do WhatsApp or whatever.
Okay, we have 2 more, and then we'll have to call it a day.
Can we go just a little bit longer? If
people have questions.
Sure, come on, Shain.
I have to
I
be
came
on.
all-
I
I
have to
came
be
all this way.
relatively on time.
Nothing, we don't have to end on time. It's rock and roll. Okay.
We'll see.
I like that. It's a great attitude. My name's Drew Young, first-time caller, long-time reader. And I just have a question for you. This is kind of American-centric, but in the pop world, radio plays a very strong role in America. And I'm always curious as to what your thoughts are when radio is going to be supplanted by something else, and what do you think is going to be the next thing that takes its place? Because you talk about these massive stars. It seems to me that is such a huge driver to make them these massive stars. And in America, with commute times and things like that.
If I understand the question correctly, you're basically saying, yes, radio is the #1 way to reach people. It's just not as powerful as it used to be. So that's the avenue people go down. So now, with the splintering of the market, we have, Pandora and all these other things. What is going to be the avenue of the future? That's one of it's both depressing and exciting. We're on that path and we don't know, okay? If you look at everything else, and the Shain doesn't like this, it'll solidify and there'll be one thing that rules. When is that going to be here? It's at least 4 to 5 years off, if not 10. One of the big things is curation. Problem is people in curation don't understand you need a hit to shit ratio of 90%. I have to like 90% of what you're telling me, or I have to at least understand why you put it there. It's like if you're recommending something, don't recommend something you like. Recommend something I will like. It's ridiculous, It's like I said, when you say, oh, it's good, you should check it out. There's like 1 million tracks, I don't care. You say, oh, if it's good, you'll like that, then it becomes interesting. But going back to my point, there's not enough money in curation, so the people won't do it. They have algorithms, and algorithms can't really speak the truth.
Like
I was going to ask you
which
about
is
that.
automatic curation in some ways as well. People are discovering music essentially through Shazam often, where they just hear something, stick their phone up in the air.
I think that's
But
overrated.
that's still radio-based in a lot of ways.
No. I think that Shazam is a company that wants to make money, and they pay people and they write about it. The way most people hear about music is from their friends, okay? And it is very hard to get that network activated. We're talking about all these tools to try to get things in the marketplace, but it won't blow up until someone pulls it down and then expands upon it. If you go back to the video with Christopher Walken dancing with the DJ out of the UK, okay? It was called a turntable hit. Nobody bought it. It was just a cool video, okay? Today, you can't have a cool video on YouTube, but these things is somewhat expired. The game has changed. Next question, please.
Got one back there at the back. And we'll extend and include everyone.
As long as it's interesting.
That's not for me to judge. No.
Hi, my name is Parag. Bob, you commented on a few things. One, obviously being an expert on sort of the pendulum of the music industry, things going back and forth. One thing on EDM, you had mentioned that a lot of these labels did it themselves, which I absolutely agree with. Could you comment on sort of the globalization of the EDM festival circuit with companies like SFX and Live Nation buying up the Donny Discos and the React Presents and all the guys that have done it themselves, and where do you see that trend going?
Well, assuming I got the question correct, there's two different things. There's the act, there's the music, and then there's the live performance. Music, you're not going to like this either. Mark Geiger, one of the biggest agents in the business, and these people, he's based in Beverly Hills, but around the world. He has Lollapalooza. They now have Lollapalooza in South America. He said, for EDM to survive, it has to cross over to pop. Now it's done that. Calvin Harris had one of the biggest tracks of the summer, okay, about the summer. So that's what's happening in the music. In terms of the festivals, I know all those guys, and I've done a couple of their events. It's the IMS, International Music Summit, Ben Turner and those people. And I did an event for them in the desert just before Coachella in 2012, and they all stopped around bitching that all these people were coming in and they're ruining the business and all the values. A year later, I was in Ibiza, same people had all sold out. No one put a gun to their head. They wanted to sell out. So it's ultimately, if you talk to the people in that business, every territory has not been settled. They're now fighting over Asia. So yes, you have SFX, you have Live Nation. Generally speaking, AEG is sitting by the sidelines. The financials of SFX are really terrible if you follow it closely. One big analyst came out and really beat him up, and then Silverman himself bought some stock. That's not really that good, but yes, the problem is, I'm just going to tell you one of the rules of the road, because you're not going to like this one either. It's very hard to be an independent concert promoter because you go out of business. You have a 5 to 10% margin, you have all these costs. Generally speaking, the acts only want to play for an established promoter, not because they like the established promoter, but they know they will get paid. Getting paid is crucial.
Okay, we had one hand up. Depending on
Hi guys, this is Arit. I work at Last Tour in the marketing department. As far as I know, Bob, you're from LA, so I had the chance to work there for quite a long time in the music department in one company. So my question is, do you think LA is still like the downtown of music industry nowadays, where you can go and play on the 3rd on Santa Monica and become a new Kesha and Taylor Swift? Or you think just another kind of shithole of city where dreams never come true?
Up until recently, the business was New York-centric, the business Shain is referring to, because Lucien Grange, who's head of Universal Music, decided to live in LA. LA has had a renaissance. LA was always a major thing. So if I look at the world, would I say LA is the epicenter? Yes. Do I think you need to go to LA to make it? Absolutely not. If I go back to my point, the metrics that count, the number of fans you have, the number of Twitter followers you have, the number of YouTube plays you have, those are translatable around the world. So let's go back to the beginning of what Shain said. First, establish those numbers. Then you can make deals with everybody else to blow those numbers up. If you look at Kim Kardashian, who spoke at the Recode Mobile conference 2 days ago, she has a video game where she's still making $700,000 a day, okay? That wasn't the first thing she did. She did a sex tape first, okay, which leaked. Then that was monetized. Then we have the TV show. So you have to put these things in order. Yes, if you're an act and you have 10 million YouTube views and you have 200,000 Twitter followers, okay, all of a sudden opportunities are going to come your way. You get to choose whether there's enough money. You get to choose whether it's ultimately going to blow your act up, okay? The people will line up to give you money. And that's what everybody here is working for a television station or working for video games. You don't give a shit about music. You give a shit about your company. So I could come with you with the music all day long and you'll say, no, I don't want to use it. I come to you with Prince. I come to you with, Calvin Harris. Oh, you're all over it. So let's call a spade a spade. We're all in the hit music business.
Any final words? One final question? No one wants to go last? Okay, well, we are over time. First off, thank you to our guest, Bob Lefsetz. So we are technically opening BIME, even though it's been open all day, with our welcome reception downstairs. I believe Bob will be there. If you want to say hello, thank you very much, and see you downstairs and tomorrow.